So in regard to rhythms, I'm not going to do the full teaching on rhythms that you would normally get in the cohort, but I do want to give a little bit of that teaching and help you begin to think through the way that God uses rhythms in Scripture. So to do that, I'm not going to read Genesis 1, but I'm just going to call your attention to Genesis 1. And in Genesis 1, there is a rhythm to the garden. That the garden, if you're looking for pages, look for page 38. So we're here, session 8, page 38. We're going to take some time to talk about the rhythms of our life, because if we're going to accomplish things God's going to call us to, those things are going to come with a kind of rhythm. And I want us to just take a look at Genesis chapter 1 and just think through one major rhythm that you see in Scripture that can be translated in lots of different ways into our lives. So Genesis chapter 1, I would read it if we had a little more time. I'm just going to summarize it. You see that God steps into the disorder and the nothingness, and he speaks. And in Genesis chapter 1, everything that is beautiful is created from the voice box of God. Genesis 1, words really do create worlds. That's the whole idea there. But in regard to Eden, Eden isn't just about grace. Part of the grace of Eden is the pace of Eden. And so what you see throughout Eden is that as God creates, there's a rhythm to Eden. And so God will create on day 1, and it will say, and then there was evening, and then there was morning, day 1. He creates on day 2. There was evening and morning, day 2. Day 3, there was evening and morning, day 3. There was evening and morning, day 4. What is that about? Because it's a very, very repeated and intentional rhythm, that there's evening and there's morning. God creates mankind on day 6, and the first thing he invites man to do on day 7 is to rest with him. Now, the Jewish day is ordered after this rhythm of Genesis chapter 1 and 2. The Jewish day starts in the evening and moves to the morning, and yet it's a rhythm of life that for us inside of American society feels very foreign, because we don't do evening and morning, we do morning and evening. We do wake up, get to the things that you're supposed to do, and then go to bed. We don't think go to bed and then wake up and do the things that we're supposed to do. So the rhythm of Eden, when you think about Eden, what it looked like is that the rhythm of Eden was a kind of rhythm of moving from rest into work. It was enjoy the evening, and from the evening move into the work that you're supposed to do. From the rest, you move into the work. This is what Jesus gets at, I think, in John 15, when he's saying, if you abide in me, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. He's saying, come and remain in me, rest in me, and from that rest, you will do work. Now, I got to tell you, this is not something that comes natural for me. It's very, very counterintuitive for me. I remember the first time that I was thinking about this, it's probably 10 years ago now. I was in my office in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I was reading this rhythm of Genesis chapter 1 and 2. I was actually listening to John Ortberg talk a little bit about this rhythm of Genesis 1 and 2, and honestly, I know I had read it a million times, but I just passed over the whole evening and morning kind of piece. And yet, my life was filled with morning and really, afternoon, and then late night, and then eventually some rest kind of stuff. And I remember God just began to get a hold of my heart and just saying, do you trust me not just with the grace of your life, but you trust me with the pace of your life? And I remember just thinking, what would it look like if I actually started to order my day around this kind of rhythm? So I remember, again, it's probably 10 years ago, saying, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose to believe at 5 o'clock, that's not the end of my day, that's the beginning of my day. When I go home, I got a 20-minute drive, I'm going to reset. I'm going to get there, I'm going to enjoy my time with Kim and the kids. I'm going to actually get a good night's sleep, and out of that, I'm going to trust that I'll be able to do the things that I'm supposed to do the next day. That's counterintuitive to me. Before that time, just to be honest with you, I was preaching a lot. Every night I would be bringing commentaries home. I'd be up till 1 o'clock in the morning, preparing the talk, all that kind of stuff. And so what my life looked like was not rest and work. It looked like work and collapse. Work and collapse. work and collapse, work and collapse, work. And to be honest, even today, I can struggle into that kind of rhythm, which is morning and evening, work, 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 and then collapse, work, 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 and collapse, versus the kind of rhythm of rest and then work. Now, part of that was because I didn't realize God's ideas on productivity. Now, I want to suggest to you, Jesus is the most productive being on the planet. If you look at the Gospels, the reason the disciples follow Jesus is not just because he's a great rabbi. It's not just because he's a good teacher. He's the best fisherman they know. They go out all night. They don't catch anything. He goes out at the wrong time of day in the wrong part of the pond. They catch more fish than they've ever caught in their life. He's the best fisherman they know. He's the best baker they know. He's the best bartender they know. He's the best at everything. He's the best at everything. He's the most productive being that ever lived. And part of his productivity comes from understanding rhythms. What's he say? I can only do what I see the Father doing. I can only say what I hear the Father saying. Here's what Jesus knows that I don't know a lot of times. See, I think productivity comes from doing lots of things. Jesus knows productivity is about doing the right thing at the right time. Productivity is not about doing lots of things. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. And so for Jesus, the reason he's so productive is he's never operating outside of grace. He's never operating, he's never striving. He's always doing what he sees the Father doing. It's in retreat that he gets that revelation, and it's from that rest that he's doing work, and that work is incredibly productive. And he's living in that rhythm of Genesis chapter 1 and 2 of rest and work. As we think about strategies in regard to what we're trying to build out, we want to be productive, so we got to think about not just the roles of our life and not just the resources of our life, but what about the rhythms of our life? Where are our lives out of rhythm? Where are our lives out of tune, so to speak, with Eden? And where are the places that we need to make a shift to get not just our roles right and our resources right, but our rhythms in line with who God's called us to be? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take about 3 minutes now. Take about 3 minutes and look at that rest work assessment. And I want you to look at your life inside of a couple different rhythms. The daily rhythm. How are you doing with rest and work? The weekly rhythm. How are you doing with rest and work? The quarterly rhythm. Well, how are you doing with rest and work? The yearly rhythm. How are you doing with rest and work? Now, some of us will need rest redeemed in our life. Others of us might need work redeemed in our lives. If you're a boomer, you probably need rest redeemed in your life. If you're a millennial, you might need work redeemed in your life. Yeah, I mean, we've all been around some of the young people today. I'm not trying to make a statement, but it's just hey, I'm just abiding, I'm just resting. It's like, dude, you need to get to work, man. You need to maximize some things in your life. Again, that's probably an unfair generality. I don't mean to be mean in any kind of way, but I'm just saying we all have different defaults. Some of us need work redeemed. Some of us need rest redeemed in our life. Just take a look at your daily, weekly, quarterly, yearly rhythms and just ask, how are you doing on a daily basis? Do you feel full of life? Do you feel drained? Are you exhausted? Probably not a good time to ask you that right now, right? But it is, by the way, why we started with worship today. We wanted to move into the work of today out of the rest of today. Weekly, do you have a Sabbath? Is there a sense of some things? And when I think about rest, I'm not just saying doing nothing. It might be recreate or recreate, like play golf or do. Is there things that you have? How about quarterly? Do you have vacations on your schedule? And also the work piece. What is it that's missing to your work daily? What is it that's missing to your work weekly? What is it that might be missing quarterly to your work yearly?